Hello and a warm welcome to the CNBC Africa special. I'm Kukuletu Gcele. Now, following a plethora of bad news from rating agencies with regard to South Africa, the story with the City of Johannesburg has been different. It has received positive news from Fitch. To walk us through this theme, we're now joined by the Executive Mayor of the City of Johannesburg, Mayor Parks Tau. Good to have you with us as always, Mr. Mayor. It does seem as though the City of Johannesburg is certainly doing something right in order to differentiate itself, not only as a leader on the continent, but globally too, with regard to a new rating upgrade on outstanding bonds for the City of Johannesburg locally at a AA rating. Walk us through what this actually means for the City of Johannesburg.
Well, thank you very much. We are very excited as the City of Johannesburg to have received a one-notch upgrade on our credit rating as an institution. Amidst, of course, all the negative news that's been there, we're encouraged that the markets were able to look at us as an institution that is reliable, that manages its finances in a prudent way, that has established systems and controls that are adequate to convince the market to give the City of Johannesburg an upgrade.
For the citizens and those who live within the vicinity of the City of Johannesburg who are slightly confused, walk us through what the qualifying criteria is for this one-notch upgrade, given the background that we understand from a South African economic point of view.
Well, Fitch has raised a number of issues in the report that they've published. They indicate, amongst others, that the city is investing in the right areas, that we've committed to invest 100 billion over 10 years, which investment would go towards addressing three things. The first would be about addressing historical backlogs. The second would be about replenishing aging infrastructure. And the third, which is really the area that they focus their attention on, would be to invest in infrastructure that supports the growth of the economy and the city. And in that regard, they were convinced that, in fact, our long-term prospects have improved as a result of the investments that we're making. So whilst we've taken an aggressive position with regards to infrastructure investment, it is intended that would yield positive results. The second area is that when you look at the services that we're investing in, for example, we've looked at unaccounted for water as an area. We've been focusing on reducing unaccounted for water from 31% to standing now at 22%. We're intervening with regards to electricity, so our installation of smart meters is intended to improve revenue collection, revenue management, but also different interventions that enable us to improve the quality of the finances of the organization. And I think that's the message that Fitch has taken to consideration in upgrading the City of Johannesburg.
And this is certainly something different and something that we need to celebrate, Mr. Mayor, as you allude to, given the fact that it shows transparency as well as efficient management of the finances that we have for the City of Johannesburg, which are well above 50 billion rand?
Well, the City of Johannesburg's budget is currently standing at 54 billion rands and growing annually. It's a large institution with a number of important entities where we're investing in critical infrastructure in the city. You look at the M1 and M2, we're currently investing in recapitalizing the bridges on both the M1 and M2. We've invested in public transport systems. We're investing in generating electricity from our sewer treatment plants that generate their own electricity. And those were important considerations to the credit rating agencies about where and how the city is investing its money and how it would be able to yield positive results from these investments as a city. And I think that for us, I think it's an affirmation of the fact that our long-term strategy, the Joburg 2040 Growth and Development Strategy that we published in 2011, is being realized, because we can progressively see that the commitments that we've made are being realized, and the report itself says so.
Mr. Mayor, what does this mean for the investment appeal of the City of Johannesburg, given the fact that it's a AA rating? Are these local investors that will be participating in driving further investment into the City of Johannesburg, or international investors too?
Well, as we know, the City of Johannesburg was the first issuer of municipal bonds in the local capital markets, and consistently we've been issuing in the markets. We've been priced competitively, and we anticipate that this would give us better pricing, because a notch upgrade indicates that, in fact, the investors would look at us positively. We anticipate that the next instruments that we list would be looked at positively, including, of course, the bilateral loans that we enter into on an annual basis. We've reached the point where our loan book is currently standing at slightly above 10 billion rands, and it is intended that we'll be able to grow this consistently to reach 15 billion rands. But the Fitch report indicates that, in fact, we've got a solid capital redemption scheme, and that the loans that are due for payment actually have cash backing those loans. So when we redeem the next loan that comes as a bullet payment of 1 billion rands in 2017, we actually have cash in the bank right now to be able to pay for that.
Sure.
It's actually about prudent financial management where you develop a redemption scheme. They've also made reference to COJO2, which is the second bond that we issued that was a longer-term bond that we issued in the City of Johannesburg, and they've said that the redemption of that bond has been positive to date. We're now left with less than 350 million rands to redeem that bond, and we actually have cash in the bank to be able to redeem, because the redemption was happening on a quarterly basis. So we started the redemption period, and consistently we've been paying off the bond whilst we're meeting our interest obligations on a monthly basis.
How difficult would that be to maintain, Mr. Mayor, given the fact that we are entering into a rising interest rate cycle from a national perspective, there are currency fluctuations and swings, and inflation also playing a bit of a threat to that too?
Well, I think most important is the fact that as a city, we don't trade in international markets, we trade in local markets. So we're priced at a local level. Local markets would continue needing to invest in instruments that would yield a return, and they would look at the City of Johannesburg as a positive investment. It's an asset class that they can look at and say, we're prepared to invest in this, because their track record in terms of redeeming their instruments, but also the pricing and the credit rating are positive in the City of Johannesburg. And on the basis of that, we anticipate that the market would look at us favorably. They would look at us as an area of hope where they can be able to invest in a reliable asset class, and that's showing positive improvements in terms of how we're managing our finances as a city.
If you can give us a sneak peek into the kind of investors who take up their local bonds, are these retail, institutional investors?
Well, we have mainly institutional investors that have been investing in the different instruments that we issue. The most recent was, of course, the green bond that was the first international green bond to be listed by a local municipality that we listed in 2014, and that has been received positively by the local institutional investors. We do anticipate next year to issue another retail bond. This would be a second tranche retail bond where we would go to the people of Johannesburg and say, you actually can invest in your own city, and you would be able to get the necessary interest and security of your investment in your own city on the basis of, in fact, the reliability that we've shown as an institution.
The ripple effects as to what the benefits will be for the ordinary citizen of Johannesburg, who perhaps might still be lost in the financial jargon and the terminology that we're dealing with here. But at the end of the day, what do they reap from this investment upgrade? The
first is better interest rates. So it means that we'll be paying less for interest. So every time we get an upgrade, we pay less for the interest. The second is improving the scope of potential investors. So more and more investors would be able to invest in the asset class of Johannesburg and say that we're prepared to invest in this. And as soon as you increase the scope of investors, it means that your bonds are retailing at a cheaper level, because more and more people want to invest in the instrument. So we anticipate that the pricing would get a pricing improvement, and that would also get an interest rate improvement.
Mr. Mayor, we're raising all of this capital through these bonds, but fundamentally, what will the money be spent on?
Spent on capital infrastructure. It's on the roads, on the bus rapid transit system, on recapitalizing aging infrastructure, and on providing services to those communities who historically have not had access to services.
What about job creation? I know that there is a Jozi at Work plan that has been implemented so far. Could that also be another area where we see this capital being rolled out into?
It's an integral part of how we invest in as the city. When we look at our capital investment program, we prescribe that, in fact, part of it would be through the Jozi at Work initiative.
Is there a particular update on that so far as to how it's progressing, Mr. Mayor?
Well, we're quite excited because there's acceleration by the various departments in the city. We've now had more than 20,000 people employed through Jozi at work in the city.
To come back to this loan, rather the Fitch upgrade on the credit rating of the City of Johannesburg, I take it this stands again to highlight how you're creating a world-class city through the City of Johannesburg. And this comes at a point in time because we recently had the AfriCity Summit. You recently visited Paris as well for the COP21 Summit. Again, does this highlight the initiatives and the drive to create the City of Johannesburg as a world-class city?
Certainly, Johannesburg is acknowledged internationally as being a pioneer, particularly on the African continent, in terms of financing schemes and mechanisms that we're developing and pioneering the different instruments that are being raised by the City of Johannesburg.
So we're ending 2015 certainly on a high. For 2016, what can we anticipate from the City of Johannesburg?
Well, 2015 has been a difficult year, but we're ending it on a high. We anticipate to have greater improvements as we accelerate our capital investment programs, but also accelerate the programs that we're implementing, such as the youth development initiative that we've titled Vulindlela Jozi, the rollout of the broadband infrastructure that would now be expanding free Wi-Fi hotspots throughout our city, and the recapitalizing of our aging infrastructure. We anticipate that the infrastructure in areas such as Sandton would improve as a result of the investments that we're making, and that would have more reliable, safe and efficient public transport in these areas.
So free Wi-Fi in Sandton come next year?
It certainly will be.
We look forward to that, Mr. Mayor, and tweeting you using that facility. But just to highlight as well on some of the challenges, as you've alluded to, 2015 has been slightly difficult from a pick-it-up perspective, as well as the strikes and unrest. Is that going to be managed in the days to come?
Well, we're managing the situation. We think that it's important to continue sending out a message to Labour in particular, that the City of Johannesburg maintains cordial, good working relations and maintains progressive labour relations practices, and we expect the same from the workers. If there's a strike, it needs to be properly balloted. If it is not properly balloted, we'll interdict, and we do expect that they would heed the calls of an interdict. And we're quite worried that, in fact, Labour has not responded to those. But we're engaging with them, and indeed appropriate action has to be taken when, in fact, they exceed, I think, the levels of tolerance that any institution would be able to accommodate.
And I take it you need participation as well from the citizens of the City of Johannesburg to assist the city when it comes to managing some of these challenges.
We need participation and support. We need a community that understands that we can't sit back when Labour holding the entire city at ransom. Placing demands such as we want a 14th check is actually a reversal on the gains that we're making. So when the organization generates a surplus, it is invested in infrastructure, it's invested, we're managing the finances in a prudent way so that we can invest in infrastructure. And they are saying, well, actually, we want this money to pay us a 14th check, and we think that that's quite an unfortunate demand under the circumstances. The surpluses that are generated are intended for investment in the infrastructure and in the people of the city.
Exactly. Mr. Mayor, thank you so much for your time today and providing some insight into the good news that we look to share not only with the citizens of Johannesburg but members across the continent with regard to the upgrade of South Africa's, or rather the City of Johannesburg's, outstanding bonds to AA. That's by ratings agency Fitch. But that's where we leave it for the CNBC Africa special. Once more, a big thank you to the Executive Mayor of the City of Johannesburg, Mayor Parks Tau, for his time today. You too can continue the conversation by tweeting at CNBC Africa. But in the meantime, we'll see you next time.